did this last year around this time. I think it was even on Christmas Eve. And yeah, Rand Paul just released his federal waste report. Yes, his annual Festivus report. And he found out that there was $52 billion of worthless government spending. So let's go over it as the final video before the big day. And I can't wait. Christmas is my favorite day of the year, and hopefully I can spread some joy and just tell you how worthless your government overlords in fact are. Senator Rand Paul has unveiled his annual Festivus report, which tracks what he sees as wasteful spending by the federal government. According to the libertarian-leaning Kentuckian, oh come on, leaning, waste topped over $52 billion in 2021 since arriving in the Senate, amid a Tea Party wave in 2010. Paul has made the federal budget one of his foremost concerns, exactly like his father, Ron Paul, 2008 and 2012 presidential candidate. The former U.S. Representative Ron Paul, the younger Paul, has decried U.S. military adventurism, the excesses of post- and 9/11 surveillance states, and the perpetually unbalanced federal budget of the federal government. Yeah, but how much spending a year does he do on being based and red-pilled? The Festivus report has become a staple of Paul since 2015 when he released his first edition of the report. In the 2021 report, Paul circulated that federal boondoggles added up to a total of $52,598,515,585. Good work if you can get it. An amount Paul says could have been used to give everyone on Earth around $6.78. Nice. What does that buy you? A number 2 family combo? Or I don't know. She's trying to make a fast food joke or what you can actually buy for $6 nowadays. Build 13,149 miles of 4-lane highway. Hey, if you're a libertarian, why are you talking about government roads? Fuck the roads. Operate veteran affairs facilities for 4.5 months. Wow. Or to fund the Department of Energy for nearly 2 years. I think, based on what happened in 2021, you should probably look at properly funding the Department of Energy. Just saying. For ground-up ferrets to border walls, from Middle Eastern countries to the federally funded dinosaur film. Cool. These are some of the most striking examples of the bizarre spending revealed by Paul. Yeah, let's go through it. Misappropriation of COVID funds cost $40 billion. Wow, who could have seen that coming? Since January 2020, the U.S. government has spent more on relief packages for the China virus than it spent on World War II. Holy fuck, the entirety of World War II? And these relief packages have cost taxpayers tens of billions of dollars in waste and misappropriate funds, Paul argues. By the largest expense listed was $36 billion loss to the improper CARES Act unemployment payments. The CARES Act, signed into law in March of 2020, was the first major pandemic stimulus bill. At the time, when uncertainty about the disease was at its peak, fair enough, the bill expanded eligibility opportunities for unemployment, allowing those who would normally not qualify to receive unemployment payments. Yup. Where you went above and beyond what people were normally getting, okay, paying them $400 or $600 more per week or per month. Bi-weekly. That's what those were being paid out at. Yeah, to sit at home and do nothing as opposed to go to work. As a purely economic choice, why would anybody make that decision to not take the free money? Just saying. Though it has since become clear that most healthy adults under 50 were at little risk of severe disease, federal expenditures authorized by the CARES Act have lagged behind the science. No, that's not the only thing that the federal government has lagged behind in regards to the science. While employers across the nation are desperate for more employees, many not at-risk Americans have continued to collect unemployment checks under CARES Act guidelines despite being able to work at workplaces enforcing their own COVID safety measures. Yeah, but who wants to go back and get forcibly jabbed? I'm just saying. Second largest expenditure detailed by Paul was also the result of COVID stimulus legislation. In total, Paul claimed that the federal government spent around $4.3 billion on duplicate or ineligible PPP loans. Huh. Another relief policy that allowed employers to take loans from the federal government to ensure that their employees got paid. The Department of Defense spends billions on scrapped planes, abandoned buildings, and Middle Eastern border walls. How much is this going to have to do with Afghanistan? That'll make your blood boil. According to Paul, the DoD has invested $3.4 billion into replacing the Bradley fighting vehicle, one of the military's go-to tank-like assault vehicles that are used as a part of transport troops. Used in part to transport troops. Efforts to replace the Bradley began in 2003, but the DoD has still not managed to build a viable replacement. Yeah, sometimes you reach peak engineering and you can't do much better. The DoD also lost quite a bit of taxpayer money during the chaotic and controversial withdrawal from Afghanistan. There it is. Ordered to leave immediately by Joe, the military left behind not just hundreds of American citizens, but billions of dollars of military equipment. Yeah, we already went through all of that. The evacuation left around $2.4 billion of buildings of infrastructure sitting around in buildings being unused. Yeah, which he documented a lot at the time and still is. Very upsetting. One of the biggest stories of the year. Why we are spending all this money to build them in the first place. Paul wrote, yep, your libertarian is showing. What was once a mission to seek out and destroy people who perpetuated the 9/11 attacks became an exercise in, well, it's unclear exactly what. Fair enough. Additionally, $549 million, not billion, we're out of the billions, was spent by the DoD on military aircraft for faraway desert nations, but these were later thrown away. What? And sold as scrap for $40,257. Holy fuck. Since 2017, the Department of Defense lost $773 million of uncontrolled debts for allies to use for U.S. aircrafts. The DoD is responsible for billing and tracking countries' usage of these goods and services. However, DoD apparently forgot about that part in regards to noting that aircrafts were not supposed to be offered for free. Yep. One of the Department of Defense's most bizarre expenditures involves $250 million investment into the border wall around several Middle Eastern and North African countries. Borders work, but it only works in Asia and Africa, not along the southern border. 1 million trees for New York City with all of their green space that's available. Solar panels for Africa. And other climate initiatives. No shit. For example, the federal government offered a staggering sum of $400 million to plant 1 million trees in New York City between 2007 and 2017, which comes to about $400 per tree. I'm no arborist, okay, but I'd imagine you can probably get a pretty well-developed tree for $400. How much of that money actually went to trees? I'm just saying. Some African nations also made off with a windfall of U.S. taxpayer funding. No. The Department of State, Paul says, devoted $179 million to funding green energy programs in Africa. Well, to be fair, they see the sun a lot, but isn't that their responsibility? It shouldn't be nation building in Africa. That's probably why. Nigeria is the next place to get invaded. Just note that down on the calendar. I'd imagine it's probably going to be a new war in 2022. Who fucking knows? Operating renewable energy sources like solar and hydroelectric remain more costly to African citizens. Yeah, exactly. Where are you going to fucking afford a dam in Chad? So, by providing $179 million for renewable energy, we're actually going to be sticking sub-Saharan African consumers with hefty electricity bills. Now you know what BC feels like. Anyways, moving right along. Another $88 million from U.S. aid went to efforts to build irrigation systems in Afghanistan. Oh, cool. Was that to just try to sink some of those jeeps that the Taliban were chasing the armed forces out with? Despite nearly $100 million investment, these have gone mostly unused by Afghan farmers. No shit. Probably just stare at it out in the field and go, la, 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 la. Ground up ferrets for COVID vaccines and other government-funded research projects. Sorry, what? One of the most bizarre research projects highlighted by Paul involves $4.5 million in funding for a vaccine facility that ground up ferrets, among other inhumane tests. Oh boy, Does this involve little beagle puppies and having their faces devoured by sandflies? In 2010, the American taxpayer had given up Triple F Farms $4.5 million to breed and transport ferrets. Literal, actual ferrets, like little fuzzy snakes. Okay. To coof and influenza vaccine testing laboratories. Okay, a 2011 investigation into their facility included video recordings of ferrets dying in feces, run over by carts, thrown alive into incinerators, and hanging from wire. Oh, I'm glad he watched it and not me. Triple F Farms received a $44,000 fine from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Ha! We'll give you $4.5 million, but we'll fine you $44,000. That ought to show you. Paul called a minor slap on the wrist when compared to the millions of dollars of taxpayer funds they received before and after the investigation. Yep. Another federally funded study to the National Institute on Aging at a cost of $1.3 million taxpayer funds found that hearing bad news decreases happiness levels. Oh my God, reading this decreases happiness levels. In the same vein, the federal government financed $352,000 experiment which concluded that kids crave junk food and gain weight if they're exposed to it. Thanks. Glad you spent that much money on that. How much is a bag of Doritos? You can probably figure that out yourself. Finally, the National Institute of Health spent $465,000 on an experiment involving pigeons playing thought machines. Was Mike Tyson involved? Well, the FDA spent $337,000 and an additional $500 on an effort to fatten eels for human consumption. So eat the sea bugs. Cool. What the fuck do we have here? Translating books into Georgian. Not like, southern states Georgia, but like Georgia, the European country. For example, the Department of State spent $182,741 on an initiative to translate classical American books into Georgian, the language of a small Central Asian state. Ah, damn it. I thought it was in Europe. With a population of around 3.7 million people, less than the population of Los Angeles alone. Yeah, but probably would be just about as helpful to 3.7 million Los Angeles, because who knows how many of them can actually read. The books used are not objectionable. Some economic textbooks, children's textbooks, and American classics like All the King's Men and Invisible Man. But when did this become the federal government's job? Exactly. Good point. In the United States, nearly 1/3 of fourth graders are not proficient in reading. But can they read Georgian, though? Is it an easier language to understand? In the case of bureaucrats, have forgotten your constituents are the American people, not not foreign citizens. Yeah, fucking well right. The State Department had spent $200,000 on an initiative to teach French people about American culture. Ha ha ha, we hate the French. Despite the fact that U.S. culture already has an outsized effect on French culture and language. But what about we trade you for cheese and wine? USAID, in the same vein, also spent $150,000 on funding free field trips to Washington for Korean children. North Korean children? Yeah, we could get them out of there. That's fine. New York City, for instance, got a grant of $25 million as part of the coof relief program. Oh, really? To display art projects across the city. Does that explain that really awful African mask statue? Do you guys remember that one? I think that was outside City Hall earlier this year. It was an abomination, but Mayor Bill de Blasio introduced the City Arts Court, which paid around 300,000 artists. Or 3,000. Don't need to oversell any more of the atrocities of Bill de Blasio. To publicly display works in an effort to resurge the cultural scene. Oh, I wonder if one of those art installations was that one at Hudson's Bay where that kid jumped off and killed himself. Another $14 million went to funding the Wilson Center, an upscale venue that often the scene of what Paul describes as swanky parties for members of Congress. Oh, is that where one of Biden's Christmas parties that he isn't allowing his staffers to attend? Is that where one of them happened? And the Wilson Center has gotten a lot of taxpayer money over the past several decades. According to Paul, this congressional party hub has received $300 million since 1976. Holy fuck. Well, its aforementioned peers have received zero. Huh. Okay, so the National Science Foundation spent $2.5 million on a film about a dinosaur to inspire middle schoolers. Dinosaurs and middle schoolers? Okay, I would understand if you were doing a piece of propaganda involving dinosaurs for like young kids, okay, for pre-K and K and maybe early elementary, but for middle schoolers? Fuck off. Yes, the government used $2 million of taxpayer money to create a dinosaur-centric film in 2D and 3D. Nobody watches 3D films anymore. Come on now. A 3-episode TV series, a fictional book, and museum exhibits to inspire middle schoolers to build an interest in STEM. Yes, you know, that booming industry of researching dinosaurs in STEM in 2022. Okay. But the fact that you could get all of that stuff done for $2 million really should be like a backhanded slap to Hollywood as well. So with all the bitching out of the way, what does Paul want to do with the budget? How would he go about balancing the budget? Well, a few years ago, Paul introduced his A Penny Plan, a balanced budget. According to Paul, the plan would have to cut out 1 penny off every dollar spent by the federal government. But amid record spending by the Democratic Congress, that plan will no longer be enough to balance the budget, Paul said. Now the federal government is spending so much money that they need to cut 5 pennies off of every dollar it spends to balance the budget. God damn it, that's far too much. 5 cents off of every dollar? Man, at those types of margins, you're really making UNICEF and Bono's Red Project, you're really making them blush there, Ron. Or rather, Rand. Hope your father's is still doing good. During early debates on Democratic Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders' $3.5 trillion budget draft, Paul introduced an amendment to the bill that would have done just that. However, the amendment was defeated by a supermajority. Goes to show you that there's a uniparty. It really is. With several Republicans joining the Democrats. That would be a supermajority, 2/3 of Congress, by the way, 67 senators, to strike down the proposal. Still, Paul said he would keep doing what he could to fight the problem. All the speed in which our debt is growing needs we mean to be more vigorous solution to solve this growing problem. Yeah, very much so. Especially, a dinosaur. You ever seen a dinosaur movie? That it wasn't Gladiator. And yeah, obviously, you knew a huge host of the governmental waste was going to be coming from coof payoffs and then just leaving shit back in Afghanistan. Two of the biggest stories throughout the entire year. Totally makes sense. But yeah, somebody someday is eventually going to have to address the massive deficit, the massive overspending of government. But ain't going to be happening today because, yeah, as it points out there in one of the final lines, supermajority, 5 cents off of every dollar spent. That would help balance the budget, but they ain't about that life. They're just all about spending your money irresponsibly. Once again, at least that's what this shows. But this could be just right-wing propaganda, man. But I'll take the word of Rand Paul. But yeah, I think there's a link to the actual Festivus report in here for your own reading luxury. But that's just some of the high points that are out there. And I thought that I'd share that with you. And maybe we'll make it a tradition if I'm still doing this in 2022. Here's hoping. But yeah, Christmas Eve, right? A couple of hours. Everybody's probably going to be, depending on what time zone you're in. Could be Christmas wherever you are. Who knows? That's pretty cool to think about. But hopefully you're going to have some time to spend some time with the people that you love, or maybe you're just spending some time with yourself. And I know I can speak and say that I love nobody else in this world more than I love myself, and I'll be spending some time with me. That's for true. So yeah, hopefully the next couple of days treats you guys extremely well. It's my favorite time of the year, and I get to spend several hours doing something I love every single day to middling results, but it'll eventually turn around, and just gotta keep giving hope, I suppose, and spending it some time. Eventually this goes out and it's viewed by dozens of people, which is awesome, and I'm just happy people give a shit about my opinion. A couple of swear words that get thrown in every once in a while, and have a great time, and I get to give everybody a little bit of gift in 3 different doses every single day, and a 4th during the week. Got a second channel if you're so inclined. But yeah, enjoy Christmas Eve. Spend it with some people that you love, doing some old traditions around Christmas, and we'll catch you live on Monday. Shit's still going to be going up tomorrow and Sunday as well. Never forget, no days off. Just not, paying attention. It's a little bit different. Just front load my week, I guess. But with that said, guys, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.